There we go. Okay, we shall begin. So first of all, I thank you for being here. Um, this is a tough time, unprecedented time. You've heard it all before, but it really is a tough time. And when I look at when I was looking at how can I help myself getting through all this turmoil and change, the first thing that came to mind was, oh, we should have a book club. That's how I personally operate. When I want to get my mind out of the gutter, I get it into a book or I get it into a topic or something. So I really acknowledge you and thank you for being here today. And it doesn't mean that I don't acknowledge the people who aren't here today, because we all have our own ways of coping, and doing workshops and learning is my way of coping with all of this stuff. And if that's not somebody else's way of coping, then it is not, and that's why they're maybe not here. And so I am grateful that you are, and you've made that choice today, and that's all there is to it. There's no judgment on my part. So what I'm about to share with you is an introduction to TPRS, which stands for Teaching Proficiency Through Reading and Storytelling. And I call it a paradigm shift in teaching and learning languages. I have been I was born, for those of you who don't know, I was born and raised in Switzerland, so we were exposed to languages all around us all the time. And I formally started learning French in grade 5 and English in grade 7. And so German is my mother tongue, and Swiss German really is my mother language. And I've always loved languages and teaching languages. And for 30 years, I've been looking for ways of how can I best teach languages so that it sticks, so that we get that excitement. And I tried a lot, right down to having my grade 10 students in 100 Mile House, putting their foreheads on their desks and going into a sort of a almost hypnotic state to get them to relax so they could subconsciously absorb the language. I played with a lot, yes. This is none of that. That's the good news. This is very normal, and yet it is kind of different at the same time. But I started taking some training in TPRS last June, and I haven't stopped. I signed up for a 4 months training in the fall, and now I'm in another 4 months of training. And I'm very excited about what I'm seeing and the results that I have gotten so far. When I learned TPRS, I took a 2-day training with Ray Vaughan. He is the son of the gentleman who invented TPRS. And within 10 minutes, I was making sentences in Mandarin. And I can't speak a word of Mandarin. I can say shishi, that means thank you, but that's it, honest to God. And within 10 minutes, without looking at any prompts, I was making full, meaningful sentences in Chinese. And I thought, whoa. And so when I started taking my advanced training in TPRS, and advanced training, don't get fooled, I'm still a very, very beginner. I invited myself to go to Dufferin, and Seema McGarry teaches grade 7 there. And I said, can I come in once a week and play with your students? And she graciously accepted. And so I played with TPRS with her class. And I am so excited to tell you that particularly the students who were struggling with French. And I remember this one kid, his writing was maybe the production of a grade 1 student in English, just from motor skills. He was really, really struggling, had no idea what was going on in the class. And then we did TPRS, and he excelled. He volunteered, he spoke up, he was constantly talking. And when I asked him for written production, he really excelled, and he had a huge improvement just over the couple of weeks I was there. Yeah, so I was really encouraged, and that's why I'm here sharing with you this workshop, because you may find that this could work for your clientele as well. Now, it's not just good for students who are struggling. The person took a workshop with this fall, her name is Michelle Metcalf, and she is going to come to our district in the spring to put up some workshops for our teachers, and you're invited to attend for free. She actually she teaches Spanish in West Vancouver, and she is like you, Sue, works with International Book Baccalaureate, and she says she's been doing TPRS for 10 years with her students, getting amazing results. So it really seems to hit on something that appeals to both students that are struggling and students that are really at the high end of achievement. So let's dive in and look at this a little closer. And now my slide is supposed to advance. Here we go. So the goal for today is for you to have an idea of what TPRS is, that you get to experience TPRS. I'm going to give you a German lesson. Ja, guten Tag. And we're going to just go, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes max. We're just going to do a short lesson so you have an idea of what this looks and feels like, while acknowledging we're just doing a small sliver of what TPRS is. And then I will share with you specifically on how you could further your learning with TPRS and eventually maybe even bring it into your classroom. So as a district coordinator, I sat myself down in August, and remember, that's when the skies were gray because we had so much smoke. Anyway, and I made myself put down a vision and mission statement. And my the vision statement for me is something that's really pie in the sky. It's heaven on earth. It's if we all die and go to paradise, this is what the world would look like. So it's not necessarily based on what's realistic, but what is it that I deeply desire? And my vision that I came up with, and I keep honing it, is that we have a district where teachers are passionate about their L2, and L2 in this context means second language. So teachers who are passionate about their second language and spread that love to their students. That's what I would love to see, that everyone walks around with just so much love and passion for Spanish and German and French and Japanese. The mission statement, how am I getting there, is as follows. I stand for creating a safe space in which teachers are keen to grow their personal mastery of their second language and their love of teaching their second language, their L2, their French, their German, their Spanish, their Japanese. So I think having a safe space is so important. My personal mastery of French keeps doing this, and then when it's, when I feel it dripping again, I sign up for the next course, and every summer I put myself through training. But that this is a safe space where we can say, hey, I'm having a hard time, or I'm struggling, or I need help here, and that your teachers are keen to grow their personal mastery and their love of teaching French. So when you look at your purpose for teaching the language that you're teaching, French or Spanish, in an ideal world, what do you want your students to be able to do after taking your French or Spanish class? I'm just going to give you a minute to think this through, and then I'd just love to hear some of your feedback. What is it that you want your students to be able to do, to be able to feel as a result of being in your class? That doesn't work. I was hoping to be able to write on the other screen. Doesn't work. Okay.
Well, I know I want my students to have fun, like enjoy the language, not see it as intimidating, and live it, like see it as something they can communicate with. It makes sense. So I like them talking to each other as much as possible. And to what I love about TPRS are the twists, because once they start to get it, there's always something unexpected at the end that catches them.
Fun, talk, interact, engage. Did I catch that, Anne?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I want to build the ability for students to actually communicate. Mm-hmm. I mean, I do want them to have fun, don't get me wrong, but I'm one of those keeners. I really want them to be able to not just write and conjugate verbs, but actually communicate. in all forms.
I agree. So I have two hats on today. So my ELL hat, they must learn to function socially and academically in English. So it's vital that they learn listening, speaking, reading, and writing, social and academic. But as a second language teacher, so if I was teaching French or Italian, yes, I want them to have fun, but I also want them to be able to communicate. And I want, it depends, if they're going to go to Quebec, then I want them to be able to function in a social environment, like be able to order food in a restaurant or go to a store and ask simple questions. And for my students who want to go to university and pursue languages, they need to be able to communicate at higher levels.
Thank you. Those are great contributions.
I think for me, I'd like them to make some connections between their own personal experiences and what other people their age or what other people experience in a different language, specifically within Canada.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanne.
And I know that when I say fun for me is actually a lot of hard work. The fun for me comes from their successes, like as they start to communicate and have real life conversations, they get so excited, like they can't believe they can sustain a 20-minute conversation, like actually talking about the stuff that matters to them. Is it grammatically perfect? Oh gosh, no. Is it forced because I tell them they're doing it for marks? Absolutely. But every one of them that finishes, because we're just winding up our semester right now, my French 12s are doing a debate, my French 11s have just finished, and Spanish 11s have just finished these 20-minute conversations, and they're just like blown away by the fact that they've done it. And so that to me is the fun, because it's the success, it's the reward after working at it, that they can communicate and they can understand each other, not just me.
Thank you.
I'm really glad you said that, Anne, because for my ELLs, I have to ensure that their teachers and other students understand them.
Mm-hmm.
That's really important.
And I have two Taiwanese boys in my class this year, and they have just blown the class away, that they came in with not even so much as an hola, and and they've pulled off a C+, and it's not their first alphabet. It's not the fact that somebody keeps saying that he has brown dogs instead of brown hair. So that's when we talked about the L's and the R's, where there's no L sound in their language. And that just blew the class away, just because they didn't get just how different this is for these two. And so suddenly they want to make sure they're doing better, because they realize, oh my gosh, I have to be doing better than them. So there was a competitive level, and at the same time, total admiration.
Thank you, Anne. And you said you've already been, like, I wrote you an email a few months ago saying, hey, I'm learning about TPRS. This is so exciting. I said, yeah, I've been doing it for years.
Well, what I haven't learned how to do yet is drop old stuff while I pick up the new stuff. So I kind of have a lot of things on the go. I would love to commit one way or the other, but yeah, no, it's wonderful when it works. I just don't have the materials. I keep thinking I'll write my own stories, but if you have any connections for getting us some good materials, I would love that.
Absolutely. Yep, I can help you with that. Great. Thank you so much for your input. So what I think I hear, and I can't get rid of this bar. You actually don't see my bar. That's great. No. What many of you, if we look at your list, communicate, connect, authentic, real life, understand, actually function. At the bottom of that, the way, when we look at what we're talking about here, is we really want our students to acquire the language, to absorb the language. And what's behind the research that's behind that is called language acquisition. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the idea of language acquisition, and it's the idea that we absorb the language like this toddler here, so immersed, so much exposure to the language, they grow into it. Yet the reality is, when I am very honest with myself and I go to the students I've had in the past, even the ones who had their head on the desks trying to relax as they unconsciously absorb the language, I'm laughing now, the reality is that for many of them, if they were to find themselves in this situation here in a little store somewhere in France or Quebec, that they may have a hard time actually coping, if I'm super honest with myself. And some of them may be standing there conjugating verbs, or if they are super creative, they may just break into songs. Voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir? When we are hitting the actual situation, we may be tongue-tied. Some students may find themselves tongue-tied. And so the distinction that I'm going at is the distinction between acquiring language versus learning a language learning versus language acquisition. One is an immersion environment where you're absorbing it over time. The other one says that we're learning about a language. We're learning about how the sound works, how the structures are, the grammar, how the sentences are put together. Neither one is good or bad. They're just different ways of going about the same goal. In the world of language acquisition, if we want our students to really be able to communicate freely and without going back and checking their grammar all the time, then the world of language acquisition or language acquisition theory has a lot of amazing answers for us. And the good news is, I am not asking you to stop doing what it is you're doing with your students. If it works, it works. Keep doing it. If you're looking for additional ways or other tools to bring into your classroom, TPRS may be a viable option. The problem with teaching grammar, and I love teaching grammar, and I always have my students conjugate their verbs and using hand signals and when the accents change and all that good stuff. But the problem is, and we know that from the research of Stephen Krashen, who is the god of language acquisition. There is none bigger than Dr. Stephen Krashen, who says research shows that knowledge of grammar rules is very fragile and is rapidly forgotten. It's not you. This is good news because it tells us it's not you. It's not you as a teacher. It's not your students. It's just the nature of the beast. Grammar rules are very fragile and are rapidly forgotten. For you, and so the shift that we're seeing happening in the BC curriculum, and when you look at the document we got from the government about French, what they're asking us to do is very much in tune with language acquisition, especially, I'm especially familiar with the younger years elementary learning outcomes. And there, you could say what those learning outcomes are telling us are that for communication, we focus on accuracy of message rather than on accuracy of form. It's exactly what you said earlier, Anne. We're looking at, can you get the message across? And okay, so you conjugated the wrong verb, or somehow the wrong article snuck in. It doesn't matter. We are focusing on, are you willing and able to communicate in such a way that it lands over there and has an impact? In language acquisition, the world of language acquisition, there are no errors, only stages. Isn't that soothing to the soul too? It's not that the students, there's anything wrong with them. Oh, so mommy is going to the store. Mommy goes store. Yes, mommy's going to the store. Mommy goes store. Awesome. We're not going into the 2-year-old and say, mommy goes to the store. You have to have the definite article there. We're just putting it out there. If it catches, great. If it doesn't, they're still at the stage where mommy goes to store. Here's Bill Van Patten, and I have one of his books right here. Fabulous little book, and this is what I'm hoping to put on a book club, a school district book club, if maybe starting in the spring or so. Bill Van Patten is the sort of the second coming of Stephen Krashen, whom I just quoted earlier. He is an extremely highly respected linguist and specialist in language acquisition, and he says language is too abstract and complex to teach and learn explicitly, such as any approach to language teaching in the classroom must be different from approaches to teaching other subjects, as in history, science, or math. So if your principal walks in and says, "What are you doing? This looks funny," then you can say, well, you cannot teach languages explicitly. They're too abstract, too complex. Bill Van Patten said so, so it must be the truth. So again, if your teaching of languages looks different, it's because it should be, or it's healthy that it is. So here is this one piece that I have been playing with, teaching proficiency through reading and storytelling, or TPRS. What is it about? I'm the kind of teacher, when I got hired to fill a maternity leave a few years ago at Valley View, and it was just going to be for 4 months, but I spent my entire July, August prepping. If that's familiar, this is way easier, so much faster, so much simpler prep. Once you master the techniques, it's fun and easy to apply across all languages. I find that when I use TPRS, I'm very much in tune with where students are at, where they are struggling and what's easy and how fast I need to move. It can be used, it's ideal for teachers, especially in the elementary level French. Often it's not uncommon for me to get an email or a phone call saying, hey, I don't teach French, but I'm asked to teach French this semester or this year. What am I going to do? If you know someone in that situation where they're really not all that confident with the language that they are to teach, this approach could actually really allow you to learn with your students. Because, it works for all languages. There is a very high accountability level for each and individual students, at the same time, very low threat. That's really important, that you're accountable, but you're not put on the spot. It's very engaging because it's personalized. It's about the kids. We bring their life and their stories into the lesson. In fact, you could argue it is the lesson. We can have slides, we can have a text that we go with, but really the action and the learning happens when we personalize it. Students throughout the lesson continually talk, and they talk freely right from the first lesson. I remember going to Dufferin, and we did our first 40 minutes of TPRS, and I had students making 5, 6 consecutive sentences without looking anywhere, just producing language based on what we have done. And what's really cool is if you choose to, can join a network of amazing TPRS teachers from around the world. I'm currently, in order to hone my skills, I'm teaching a German class on Saturday mornings, and you'll get the invitation if you're interested. And I have fellow TPRS teachers in my class learning German, and they're coming from Dubai, they're from all over the United States, from Brazil. It's just a wonderful group. I'm a very beginner in TPRS, and yet, as I shared earlier, I see results with my students and I see results with myself. So where is TPRS used? West Vancouver School District is almost exclusively using TPRS for their language instruction. Same with Victoria School District. They trained all their teachers, and it was all voluntary. Okay, nobody is coerced or arm twisted or anything, but the entire district, Victoria, and is trained in TPRS, those who want to. And same with Souk, the person who got the program going in Victoria, moved to the Souk district. They're just next to each other. And they're now doing the same thing with Souk, and everybody in Souk who's interested in learning TPRS gets to take the training. And Kelowna is offering a lot of training as well. SFU and the British Columbia Association for the Teachers of Modern Languages, they all put on workshops around TPRS. So this is not something niche or hidden or obscure. It's happening in BC, and it's happening through reputable institutions. All right, so much for the theory piece. It's just a brief introduction so you can orient yourself a little bit. This has been around, maybe I should say that, for about 30 years or so, 20, 30 years. All right, so let's experience this. And again, you're just getting a small sliver of TPRS. There is so much to it, so many aspects to it. And we're just going to do a little bit of oral work. We're not going into assessment. We're not going into writing. We're not doing any of that. We're just doing 10, 15 minutes of 15 minutes or so of experiencing what it could look like in a class. So please raise your hand if you have a basic understanding of German. Aha, little bit. So I see this. Joanne, are you quite comfortable with German? Just a little bit? Ein kleines bisschen. Okay, very good. And the less you know, the better, because then you can better judge, you know, how much you're learning or how this is working for you. There we go. All right, so we're going to start with you picking a persona for yourself. You can be die Giraffe, or you can choose der Fisch, der Bär, der Hund, die Katze, or you are Angela Merkel, Albert Einstein, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Heidi Klum, oder Dr. Freud. You can be any of those people. We can have a whole room full of Einsteins. It's totally fine. Just add it to your name in Zoom. So if you put the mouse on your face, 3 little dots should show up in the upper right corner. And when you go there, you should be able to change your name. Here we go. Do it for myself. Here we go. Rename, it's called. And you can keep your actual name and just add to it dead fish or the dead bat. And now you can see. Okay. I'm gonna be Freud. Okay. Eine kleine Angela. Ist die Katze, der Hund for Joanne, and der Hund for Lori. Lauren is their Hund. We have lots of dogs. Okay, that's awesome. Mozart for Glenn. And Franzi is Dr. Freud. Okay, gut, wunderbar. Angela Merkel natürlich für Sue. Wunderbar. Okay, herzlichen Dank. Thank you. There we go. So to begin, we need 2 important words. One of them is ja, ja. Give me a way to remember, and I invite you all to unmute yourself now so you can freely speak. Would be a way to remember the word ja? Ja for yes, ja. What does it sound like in English?
I was just thinking adding a nodding action. Yeah.
Ja.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody ever use that just when you speak? Yeah.
Sounds like yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yep. Oh, I like that.
Das sind meine Großeltern Deutsch.
Oh wow.
Ja.
Because to me,
Worte
because of
gehört.
Russian, ja in Russian means I.
Okay.
So when you say
Okay,
Daya
ja.
Kanadka, you're saying I am Canadian, or yes, I am Canadian. So I have to get my head around ya meaning yes.
Yes, in Mandarin, apparently it means fish. No, duck, it means duck, ja. Okay, so I know 2 Mandarin words. Okay, ja, so I like to think sometimes of a donkey. Ja, ja, ja. So that could work, okay? And then, of course, super important word, and the Germans are good at it. Nine. Oh, 9. What does that sound like? 9.
The number.
The number 9, yeah.
Oh, okay.
9.
Yeah.
Anything else that comes to mind?
No.
9. No, it's quite similar, isn't it?
It's funny though, because when you say 9 so many times, it reminds me of the Spanish no, because it's like no, y no, y no, y no, y no. It's usually a minimum 5 no's.
Not that we're counting. Oh my gosh, that's funny.
So 9. We could say no 9 times.
9. Yeah. Oh, let's all do that. 9. That is brilliant. I like to tell a joke at this point. There was this study done. They wanted to interview people to find out how they are affected by living on a major highway, a busy road, and does it in some way affect their mental health? So this researcher goes to this gentleman and say, hey, you've been living next to this, 8-lane highway for 20 years, and do you think it has ever affected you in any shape or form? And he says, 9. Anyway, another way to remember the same thing. 9, ja und nein, the 2 important words. Another thing is I will be sharing information with you in a moment. And this information, when it's new to you, is extremely important and amazing and just the most fabulous thing you've heard all day. And when you hear something that is new, you acknowledge that by going, oh, or you could go, oh.
Oh.
Everybody practice.
Oh.
Oh, wow. Oh. When I am saying something that is not understandable, then you can either just say stop, or you can do this signal. I may not catch it, even though I see you here on my screen, but if I don't catch you, just say stop, and I will translate, because it's super important that you understand every single word I'm saying. We're aiming for 100% comprehension. And when I say Klasse, you say ja.
Ja.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
we got
Yeah.
everything down, and here we go. Klasse.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to hear everybody. Klasse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
George ist in Kalifornien. Oh, wow. George ist in Kalifornien. Klasse.
Ja.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to ask you some questions. And the idea is that you all talk at the same time. Everybody is speaking simultaneously. Klasse.
Ja.
Ja.
George ist in Kalifornien.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ja.
Yeah.
Yeah.
George ist in Kalifornien.
Kalifornien.
Klasse.
Ja.
Yeah.
Ja.
George ist in Kamloops.
Nein.
9.
Nein. Das ist doof. Huh? Das ist total doof. That is silly. Let me add this. Das ist doof. That is silly. Das ist doof. Natürlich.
Doof.
Nein. George ist nicht in Kamloops. George ist in Kalifornien.
Ja.
Yeah.
Klasse.
Ja, das stimmt.
Yeah.
Klasse.
Yeah.
Ja.
George ist in Kalifornien oder means or. Or, just the first and the last letter, and you have it. Or. George ist in Kalifornien oder in Australien.
Nein.
Nein, George is
George
in
is
in
Kalifornien.
Ja, natürlich. Natürlich.
Natürlich.
George ist in
Ist-
Kalifornien. George
Ja.
ist nicht in Australien. Das ist doof. Das ist doof, ja. George ist,
doof.
das ist doof, ja. George ist in Kalifornien. Klasse.
Ja,
Ja.
Ja?
George ist in Kalifornien.
Nicht.
Ja.
Nein.
Ja.
Ja.
Ja,
Oh, Kalifornien.
ja, natürlich. Ja. George
Ja.
ist in Kalifornien. Wunderbar, Anne, wunderbar. Ich sage Wunder, you say bar. Wunder,
Bar.
Wunder,
Bar.
Wunder,
Bar.
Wunder.
Bar, bar.
Super, bravo, sehr, sehr gut. Ja, klasse.
ja,
Ja.
Wo, and you have the word wo here. Wo ist George?
George ist in
In
Kalifornien.
Ja, echt? Really?
echt.
Echt?
Ja.
George ist in Kalifornien?
Ja.
Ja.
Ah, natürlich. George ist in Kalifornien. Klasse.
Ja.
Ja.
So when I say wer is here, wer, it sounds like an owl, huh? Hoo. And everybody go, hoo, hoo. Wer
Wer?
ist in Kalifornien?
George.
George ist in California.
Sehr gut, ja, natürlich. George ist in Kalifornien. Klasse.
Ja,
Ja.
Everybody go, wo? Wo
wo?
ist
Wo?
George?
George?
In
In
Kalifornien.
George ist in Kalifornien.
Ja, George ist in Kalifornien. Klasse.
Ja.
Kalifornien.
Ja.
Ist George in Kalifornien oder in, where could he be?
Paris.
Austria.
In Paris, in Österreich? Almost.
München.
In
München.
München?
München.
He's in München, in Munich.
Ja, ich glaube, ja.
Ja, George, natürlich, klasse.
Ja,
Ist George in Kalifornien oder in München?
In
in
Kalifornien.
Kalifornien.
Er ist
In
in
Kalifornien.
Kalifornien. Natürlich. George ist nicht in München. It would be fun, though.
Ja,
Ja, if he was in München, what would he do there? Was tut George in München? Oh, la la.
Essen.
wächst ist am besten.
Torte.
Essen, ja.
Das
Essen.
Schwarzwald.
Trinken das Bier.
Ja, Bier, ha? Bier, Essen. Ja, George will Bier, ha? Er trinkt Bier. Er isst in München. Aber, however, er ist nicht in München. George ist in Kalifornien. Lori,
Ja.
George ist in Kalifornien.
Ja.
And now when I call on you individually, you respond with a full sentence. Lori,
Oh.
George ist in Kalifornien.
Ja. George ist in Kalifornien.
Ah, George ist in Kalifornien. Klasse.
Ja,
Ja.
George ist in Kalifornien. Wunderbar. Ja, sehr gut. Danke, Lori. Joanne,
Ja.
wo ist George?
George ist in Kalifornien.
Ja, natürlich. George ist in Kalifornien. Sehr gut. Angela
Ja,
Merkel, wo ist, nein, wer, everybody,
wer?
wer ist in
Wer?
Kalifornien?
George ist in Kalifornien.
Ja, George ist in Kalifornien. Klasse.
Ja.
Ja.
George ist in Kalifornien. Das ist fantastisch.
Super.
Wunder,
Bar.
Wunder,
Bar.
Wunder, Wunder.
Bar.
Sehr, sehr gut. Lauren, der Hund, wo bist du? Lauren, wo bist du?
Ich bin Kamloops.
Ich bin in Kamloops.
Ich bin in Kamloops.
Du bist in Kamloops?
Ja. Oh, ja, ich bin in Kamloops.
Klasse.
Ja.
Ja.
Sie ist in Kamloops.
Ja.
Wow.
Oh.
Oh, blows my mind. Wunderbar. Sehr gut. Ja. Anne,
Ja.
wo bist du?
Ich
Ich
bin
bin
in Sahali.
Du bist in Sahali?
Ja, ich bin in Sahali.
Du bist in Sahali in Kamloops?
Ich bin in Sahali in Kamloops. Ja.
Oh, klasse.
Ja.
Die Katze, Anne, ist in Sahali in Kamloops.
Oh.
Das ist fantastisch. Und
Fantastisch.
Wolfgang Amadeus Boden,
Ja.
wo bist du? And you don't have to be, this does not have to be real. You can make something up and have fun with this. Wo bist du?
Ich bin in Elementaria School.
Du bist in,
Was?
du bist,
In my school.
in der
Elementary.
Schule.
Schule.
Aha,
Ist in Schule.
in der Schule. Du bist in der Schule. Where did you go here?
In der Schule.
In der Schule. No kidding.
Schule.
Dear, now I lost you guys. Here we go. Und Wolfgang Amadeus Boden, du bist in der Schule, ist die Schule groß oder klein?
Ich bin in der Schule decline.
Du bist in der kleinen Schule. Die Schule ist klein, huh?
Ja.
Ja, die Schule ist klein.
Ist klein.
Die Schule ist klein. Wunderbar, sehr gut. Klasse.
Ja.
Ja.
Warum ist George in Kalifornien?
Perfect.
George, surf.
Er will surfen.
I trinken vino.
Er will Wein trinken.
Wein
George
trinken.
surft und trinkt Wein. Aha. Warum? Why else? Warum ist George in Kalifornien?
George arbeitet
Oh, George arbeitet?
Arbeitet.
für 3
Can't even see these words here.
days. I forgot the word for days.
Tage.
Tage. George
Arbeitet Tage?
arbeitet für 3 Tage
Ah, he works
in
for
Kalifornien.
3 days. Okay, what does he work? Was arbeitet er? Was arbeitet er?
Businessman. Businessman.
He's a businessman. Ja, gut. What kind of business? Was für ein Geschäft? Anyone can chime in.
Masks. He sells masks.
Das ist ein Junge. Das ist nicht gut.
Ah,
Das ist ein
arbeitet in
Sweatshop.
Kalifornien. Er macht Masken. Ah, Masken für Covid?
Ja,
Oh, das ist wunderbar. Aha, er macht Masken. Masken. Ah, er macht Masken. George arbeitet in Kalifornien. Er macht Masken. Das ist sehr gut. Klasse.
Ja.
ja,
George ist in Kalifornien oder in New York.
no, in Kalifornien. George
Er
ist in Kalifornien.
George ist in Kalifornien,
Nein.
natürlich.
Ja.
George ist in Honolulu.
Nein.
Nein.
Nein, das ist doof. George ist nicht in Honolulu. George ist in Kalifornien, natürlich. Klasse.
Ja.
Ja,
Ja.
Everybody, wo ist George?
wo ist George?
Wo
George
ist
in
George?
Kalifornien.
George ist in Kalifornien, natürlich. George will,
Georg. Ah.
Georg, ja, that would be more precise, danke.
Ja,
Georg will
Will
eine
eine
Coca-Cola.
Ooh.
George will eine Coca-Cola. Klasse.
Ja.
Ja.
George will eine Coca-Cola.
ja,
Ja.
Ja.
eine
Natürlich.
Coca-Cola.
Natürlich. George will eine Coca-Cola. Natürlich.
Natürlich.
Natürlich. George will eine Coca-Cola. Klasse.
Ja.
Ja.
George will 2 Coca-Colas.
Nein.
Nein.
Nein,
George
das ist
will
doof.
eine Coca-Cola.
George will eine Coca-Cola. Genau, richtig. Super. Wunder.
Bar.
Wunder.
Bar.
Wunder.
Bar.
Ah, natürlich. When I say the word und, which means and, you go und, okay? George will eine Coca-Cola und ein Sandwich?
Nein.
Nein. George will eine Coca-Cola. George will kein Sandwich. Das ist doof. George will eine Kokosnuss. A
Nein.
coconut. Eine Kokosnuss. George will eine Kokosnuss?
Nein.
Nein.
Nein, das ist doof. George will keine Kokosnuss. George will eine Coca-Cola. Klasse.
Ja.
Ja,
Everybody, will eine Coca-Cola?
Georg.
Georg will eine Coca-Cola.
Natürlich, Georg will eine Coca-Cola. Wie viele?
Eine.
Wie viele Coca-Colas?
Eine.
Eine Coca-Cola.
Eine.
Ja, eine Coca. Nicht zwei, nicht
Nicht
drei, nicht
Nicht
vier, nicht
vier.
Nicht
fünf,
fünf.
nein, eine
Ein.
Coca-Cola.
Eine Coca-Cola.
Warum? Warum? Warum will
Trinken.
George eine Coca-Cola?
Psti.
Eine Coca-Cola zu trinken.
Ah, er will eine Coca-Cola trinken. Ja, natürlich. Ha, George hat Durst. Trinken. Er will trinken. He wants to drink. Ja, er hat Durst. Er ist durstig,
Hat
thirsty.
Durst.
Er hat Durst, ja. Er
Mit
hat
Wodka.
Nein.
He has thirst. Ja,
Ob in Kalifornien ist.
ja, ja, genau. Ja, klasse.
Ja,
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 Wo ist George?
in Kalifornien.
in Kalifornien.
in
George
Kalifornien.
ist in Kalifornien. Und was will George?
Er
Eine
will
Georg.
Coca-Cola.
Eine
Will eine
Eine
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. So obviously we need a lot more time, but we're going to take a super shortcut here and we go to, and Anne, you may not know this technique yet. It's called describe the situation. And it's new, it's to the newest version of TPRS uses this technique called describe the situation, where you simply describe the situation so far. So we have, I'm going to model that for you, and then we can see what you can come up with just the 10 minutes we've had. George ist in Kalifornien. George macht Masken. George will eine Coca-Cola. So with the little we've done, the bare minimum is George ist in Kalifornien. George will eine Coca-Cola. Now, if you want to go further out, you can do that, but we're just going to, for now, because we had so little time, we're just going to stick to this basic one. Who would like to try to describe the situation? And again, you can go as fancy as you like.
Like, you mean like give you something in English that you can type
Nein.
for us in German?
Nein.
No, or just what we've learned so far?
Yeah, whatever you feel whatever comes to you at this point. Not forced, whatever just comes.
Georg hat Durst. Und will eine Coca-Cola.
Those are students that just make us all feel.
Georg ist nicht ein Hund.
Sehr gut. Ja, es ist nicht
Masken.
ein Hund.
Georg macht die Masken
Ja,
in
Macht die
Kalifornien.
Masken. Sie.
Ich glaube.
sehr gut, ja.
Yeah.
And we really had to cut it short here. So if we did this more fully, I would have you practice by yourself first, talk to yourself. And sometimes I would even bring in pictures of famous people. Here you talk to Barack Obama, describe the situation to Mother Teresa, and then you talk to your neighbor and you describe the situation to your neighbor, and then you would maybe pick one or two students who may produce 6-7 sentences right off the bat without looking at the text. But we've had this super short version. So on a scale from 5 to 0, George ist in Kalifornien. George will eine Coca-Cola. 5 says, I can do this in my sleep, super easy. 4 says, I can do this almost without the slide. 3, I can do this with the slide, or 2 or 1 is like, no, I'm still lost. Just hold your fingers up to show me where you are at with just a few minutes of practice. See some 4, some 3.
Like just in speaking German?
Just those 2 sentences, yeah.
Oh, okay, the
Yeah.
2 sentences.
Understanding and producing. Dankeschön, thank you. Okay, thanks. Great. And that is really feedback for me as a teacher. It's not an evaluative tool of you. It tells me, can we go on and see what's happening with George, or do we need to do some more circling here, asking more questions, asking individuals to respond, and so on. So that was sort of a very quick intro to what this can look like. And again, if you're saying, but where is the assessment? Where is the writing? Where is this? Where's that? It's all available. We just don't have time to touch on that in any meaningful way today. Here is again a quote from Dr. Stephen Krashen, the father of language acquisition. We acquire language when we understand messages, when we understand what people tell us, when we understand what we read. And it's not to be taken lightly. That understanding is so important. I was at the BC Teachers for Modern Languages conference. It was, of course, on Zoom in the fall. Anybody else was there? Anybody else attended BC? Yeah. Sue, yeah. Did you participate in, it was all about TPRS, by the way, that the keynote speaker, that was TPRS. What she was talking about. She calls it comprehensible input. TPRS, it's virtually identical. And so she was giving us these texts to read. And we were asked, how much of a text do students have to understand in order for them to be able to guess enough of what's going on in a given text? And we all guess like, 20%, 10%, 50%, if they understand, maybe 40, 50%, they can guess the rest. So she gave us a text, and it was in English, but certain words were gibberish. So when the text was 65% comprehensibility, we had no clue what was going on. To cut a long story short, and this keynote speaker actually took, I would say, 20 to 30 minutes to make this point, which I'm now making in, under a minute, trying to. We did not have a clue what was going on in that text until we could see 96% of the text revealed. So we needed to see 96% of the text in order to be able to fill in the rest. So keep that in mind. Comprehensible input is so important, that students do not have to use up brain space for guessing what that could mean, that we give them the understanding. And the fastest, easiest way in TPRS is we just give them the translation. Sometimes it makes sense to, sometimes we can act it out. Sometimes we can point, ein Stilo, ein Schreibstift, but much of the time we just keep it super simple and provide the comprehensibility.
So Franzi.
Yes.
So when I took training in teaching reading recovery or remedial reading, one of the courses I took taught the 5-finger rule. So if you gave a child a book to read, they would count the number of words they didn't understand. And as soon as they got to the 5th word, then that meant they were not going to understand the rest of the story. And so the book is too hard for them. So then they have to choose another book. So that's pretty universal, I think, whether you're learning to read or whether you're learning another language. Yeah, the 5-finger rule really applies.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say about like when I was teaching my grade 2s in French immersion, the librarians were great. Like we would make sure, like if they got to a point where there was 5 words on a page that they didn't understand, it's like, whoop, let's find something simpler or find a different topic. And it's definitely the same for second language or foreign language learning.
Yeah,
I agree. Thank you. Here more research about the brain. The more elaborately we encode information at the moment of exposure, the stronger the memory. The extreme example of that is PTSD, where we can't get rid of a memory, and it was very elaborately encoded at the moment of exposure. But in a classroom, a safe way of exposing is by using who and where and unter, 999 is giving that elaborate encoding and at the moment of exposure. And TPRS invites that into the classroom. So I hope I did TPRS a little bit of justice. It's not always easy doing that through a screen for it to come across, but if I manage to pique your interest, I consider it a success. I'm working on, or it's not working on, I am still working on getting Michelle Metcalf, IB Spanish teacher from West Van School District, to come to Kamloops for the April 25th Professional Development Day. If COVID permits us, we would make it a double day, and I would then cover your TTOC for the 26th. If we cannot have TTOCs in schools yet, then we'll do it otherwise. But for now, that's what I am aiming for, hoping that by early April or late April, we would be under different rules and we could pull that off. Under the best of circumstances, we do a 2-day training. And again, April 25th is a KTTA day already. So you would only miss one class in your classroom. And then May 20 is another district-wide Pro-D day. And we might get Michelle up in person, or we'll do it over Zoom. And she will share with you games and how to do assessment. And whether you do TPRS or not, you will get so much out of it. Oh my gosh. She offered a free little workshop on a Saturday afternoon over Zoom in December that I was invited to attend. It was just, I learned so much. And I went into the classroom the next day at Dufferin and just plugged it in. The kids loved it. And the amount of language that was produced was absolutely phenomenal. So Michelle is a really amazing lady, an amazing speaker. Moreover, you are invited to come to my German on Zoom class. And by the way, we haven't hit, George is in California, George will eine Coca-Cola. We're going to hit that in maybe 2 or 3 classes. So we're still way behind. We just started last Saturday. We just start at 10 a.m. It's open to anyone and everyone who is in my TPRS training, but I'm opening it up to you because I can. And I have a website here with that shortcut here. You can go to the website. I will then put that into the chat. That may be a good idea. And you can see what the times and the dates are, and you're anytime invited to see what does this look like, a little less rushed when we have actually a 45-minute class of TPRS. And then if you say, you know what, I don't want to wait till the end of April to learn TPRS. I want to take a course this month or next. Go to tprsbooks.com. And I have bought a good number of their resources for the group, including readers, leveled readers, fun leveled readers. And of course, Blaine Ray is the inventor of TPRS, and that's how you reach Blaine or his son Vaughn or Craig Sheehy, who are all offering these amazing TPRS trainings. In the summer, there are 2 days. During the school year, they're usually set around evenings and after school times. And your Pro-D would cover for that. And if you've used up your Pro-D and you absolutely want to do that, let me know and I'll see what I can do with my budget. Then I started a TPRS website for the school district. And here is again the code. I will maybe the easiest way to do it is I'll just send you an email at the end of this little workshop. And with those links, should you want to follow up. I just started creating this website last Thursday or something. So it's very underdeveloped, but some of the key pieces are already there and maybe of interest to you. There's some resources and so on. All right, I acknowledge and I thank you for giving me an extra 10 minutes. If you have any questions or comments, I'll be staying on. If not, or you need to go, which is understandable, feel free to do so. But I'll just stay on in case you have questions or comments. And thank you so much for participating. This was awesome. And you were an amazing TPRS class.
Thank you, Franzi.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Franzi.
Thanks.
Very welcome.
Thank you, Franzi. Danke.
Vielen Dank.
Bitteschön. Tschüss.
Hey, Fonzie, I've got some questions.
Yes.
Okay, before I want to sign up for something like that, and it is no knock on Spanish. It's the most beautiful language. I would love to learn it one day, but very focused as usual on the français. If Metcalf comes up here, are all her resources and examples going to be in Spanish?
Oh, good question. I will find out.
And I'm not, can you do it in a non-judgmental way? I don't want to insult anyone. I think Spanish is so beautiful. I just, I'm all about the French, right? So if I'm going to take new training, I wouldn't do it unless it's with someone who's going to use French examples.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
I'm sorry, I hope you understand and I'm not insulted by that, because ich glaube, ich möchte mein Deutsch üben, aber ich habe keine Zeit.
Natürlich, ich
But,
verstehe das.
yeah, so
So I have been in 2 of her workshops,
yeah.
and in both of them, I do not remember her using Spanish.
Oh,
And I don't remember her using French. I remember her just doing it. Everything she did was in English. Now, she did give a demo, and maybe the demo was, short answer, I will find out. Will you be able to provide some examples, at least in French or other than Spanish?
Please
and
don't
I would love to see some examples in Spanish. I was getting excited because we're always left out. It's always French, French, French. And I mean, I teach French, so I like it, but I'm always scrambling for the Spanish resources.
Understandable.
Yep.
Understandable. And I meant no offense to anyone. I'm just like, I'm all about using my time wisely. If I'm going to take myself out of the classroom, that's a big deal. I just want to make sure that it's, yeah. You know what? I probably won't, you know what? Don't worry about it, Fonzie, because just leave it. Maybe she will bring Spanish stuff and ask for that, because I think I've done a workshop on TPRS before. And I think, if I were going to go, I'd probably want to go with someone who's kind of gearing it for secondary. And there's not that what you just did is couldn't be secondary. It totally could. And I get it. And I get the principle of the program. But probably it would be more useful for me if it were like high school oriented. But
Got it. So you want to know, it will be oriented towards what level?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That'd be
And
great.
level and what language?
Yeah.
Now, what we just did with German, I assumed you had no German whatsoever. So you did not get an example of what this would look like at an advanced IP level, like what she is doing day in, day out.
Yeah.
And so the
I guess
intention, when we do our workshop, the weekly workshop that I'm in, we sometimes get examples in German, sometimes in Spanish, sometimes in Mandarin, French. We're all over the map. But when we then practice one-on-one, we do it in the language that we teach. So in your case, you would be doing a practice session in French with a group of people who may or may not speak French. Does that make sense?
it totally makes sense.
Okay.
And I appreciate that. It's just because it'll be rugby season. It'll be like IA time for IB. It'll be a super busy time. And I am interested in doing training of TPRS, like formally, like you've done. Because I always love integrating new stuff, but I just, before I make that decision, it would have, I just wouldn't do it if it were just generic, I guess. And that maybe that's unfair. And I don't want to impose it on anybody else here who wants to or would benefit from the Spanish. Like, that's awesome if it can help multiple teachers and make them feel comfortable by being all in English. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it would be very, very inclusive and meeting everyone's needs. While this is usually not possible, I think with this kind of training, it can be.
Yeah.
Because I think
So,
if she, yep.
Do you know of somebody who's using it in French in Kelowna, like that is doing one particularly for French?
I know it was organized by the French coordinator in Kelowna, Joanne Bruel. She brought in the speaker. But other than her, I don't know any, I couldn't name you any names of people who are doing it in French.
Okay.
And what I'm curious about too, you did say that Metcalf, I can't remember her first name, wasn't Megan.
Michelle.
Okay, you said that she was teaching IB. Is she using TPRS with her upper level IB students?
Exclusively. And she's been practicing it for 10 years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because all the workshops I've been have been at the introductory level, and like in Spanish we have Senor Woolley, which is almost exclusively this, and his books are written at 4 levels. Like you click on the computer and all of a sudden you've got 4 different levels of text, which is awesome. Do you know of anything like that in French?
Yes. So let's talk, Anne, unless this is of interest to Kleine Angela as well. So what you just saw, basically, the story around George, I can show you. TPRS.
Because there is no way on God's green earth that IB 12 class would have the English for anything like that on a slide like that. You just would not have time to spend with students who still don't know that Y means, like pourquoi is why.
Oh, absolutely. No.
You're trying to get them, like my lesson the other day when I actually tested positive for COVID and had to go home and stay away from school for a few days. And that poor sub had to come in, and it was forced marriages and child soldiers. Like, it was so intense for somebody who actually doesn't have language proficiency. And yet the kids were capable of showing the teacher how the lesson worked.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Wow. That's impressive, Sue.
Well, it is IB, right, Anne? I'm spoiled. I have some kids who are like, the classroom environment, you don't have those kids. You have to constantly worry about being on their phone because they're IB kids.
Wow. That rings a bell with my barrier crowd.
Or my grade 10. I have grade 10s too, so you know.
Gosh, that was something. So I'm answering a question you didn't ask, but here are some books. There are 77 titles they have in French. And so
Pauvre Anne. Look at that.
Wait, Pauvre Anne. We have
Anne.
know that one?
No,
No.
She's just laughing because of my name.
It's your name.
Yeah.
Pauvre Anne. She's the girl. She's going to Belgium for an exchange. And we have her. We have 30 books of her. We have 30 books of Jean-Paul et ses bons amis. We have.
Did you say we do have 30 books of Pauvre Anne? Like at Henry Group? Oh, wow. Oh, but my German exchange student leaves today.
And we have
Le
Voyage de sa vie at the group, and we have Ma voiture à moi, Le Voyage perdu, we have that as well. So these are the ones you can get through the group. I'm actually working on a list of readers, so I can give my French teachers, say, these are our level A readers we have at the group. These are level B readers we have at the group. But you were asking for
probably level 4 or AP, depending how they do them.
Level 4 books, yeah, they would be. Do we have level 4 books? Do they have level 4 books? No. Entry. Anyway, it's here. Here we go. These are the level 3 books as well.
Because the other thing I find, even with and this is one of my big knocks with AIM, is that the simplified pared down language causes it to lose a bit of authenticity. And so I guess I'd struggle to, it depends on the level. For my grade 10s, it would so be useful. But as soon as you get into that whole part about them wanting to be able to talk to human beings, you know what? Nowhere in AIM do they use comment vas-tu. They use comment ça va, almost exclusively. But more of my friends will say comment vas-tu, or when I travel, it's comment vas-tu, tu vas comment. Like, then they do comment ça va. But it's just like the choice of the program, and I get why it's a simplified version, da 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 da. But that would be my other thing about why I would be, you know, it would have to be worth it for me to do it.
Yes.
But Carly, you said that you noticed the language acquisition was super fast. And you've got experience with AIM too. So I'm wondering, like, how do you feel like comparing AIM to TPRS?
I combine them.
There you go. How do
Well,
you
they're
do
pretty
that?
similar. They're pretty similar.
Yeah.
Yes,
lot
they're
of
not really similar. Like,
There's a lot of reinforcement, and how many times do you pair it with AIM, which is what gives them the familiarity and takes them away from the written form to the oral form? But there's so much similarity in the slide and the reinforcement and the reinforcement and the reinforcement and the getting them, tricking them into saying it however many times. There's a lot of similarity if you think about it.
oh, absolutely. There's similarity and crossover. That's why they work well together.
Yeah.
And I find for me, like, I don't wait until grade 10 to introduce the vous. I start with a comment vous appelez-vous right from the get-go, like about a week in, if they're talking to me. Or if I'm talking to two of them, I'll just use it. I don't teach it, I just use it, because they need to know. If, like, some of my students that are doing the DELF, I like them to know the vous. So I could wait till grade 10. I've tried to wait and I haven't succeeded yet. So the nous and the vous, they come into play. And the comment vas-tu, that's already there in the c'est à toi, because I used the c'est à toi a little bit with the crossover with AIM. So it's like I said, I haven't quite learned how to drop something when I pick something new up. So my problem now is trying not to overwhelm students with the different resources that I'm using. But the big one is always making sure they can ask the questions. Do they know the key question words? That's kind of my focal point. Making sure they know the key question words right from the get-go, because this group that I've got coming in from grade 9, it'll be my first year with them. And I've been told already that they don't know the question words, that they didn't buy into AIM last year. And so even though I want to start with Veux-tu danser, there might be a little more review than usual of the Salut mon ami. So this is where the TPRS might fit in better, just to review things, like review the script and as well as the gestures.
And then my other question with the TPRS, have you taken the 2-day training, Anne?
The what training?
The 2-day training?
No, I'm looking forward to it. I've just taken a few workshops down at the coast when, because they've been having different people present it since '93, like since I started teaching down at the BCTML conferences. But it looks like it's a lot more, it's not as loosey-goosey as it was in those days. In those days, we were writing our own stories. Now there's so much available. I'm overwhelmed by what's available. I've gone from one extreme to the other.
Well, and I guess, Franzi, then my question is for you, like, you can't show the whole approach, obviously, in just a 1-hour workshop, but a lot of that was very visual. How much do you do with no visual prompt?
If there's a word that can't be pointed at.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, I have not gotten past George and his Coca-Cola. The students I have been working with have all been very, very beginners. So what I think might be helpful, if you're interested, is I could give you Michelle's email address and you could talk to her directly, because she would know, she would really be able to talk on your level of being an AIP teacher and the level of language you need to produce, which is obviously very different from, grade 5 kids who barely know how to say hello. Would that be of interest to you? Okay, I write that down.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
I'd
be interested too.
Okay, she's very, very open, very generous. She's just an amazing human being. Email and Sue.
Because there's a workshop I went to through SFU over the summer, and it was really interesting. She did the same master's program as I did, but she went on to do her PhD, and now she's teaching in there. And she's also an IB teacher in Kelowna. And she is kind of similar to me. She's got like a background where she taught some immersion high school and then kind of morphed into IB and does a mixture of FSL and IB. And she is fantastic, but it's l'approche actionnelle, which is like just a really participation oriented, but not just teacher directed too. Like AIM is very teacher directed. And I don't know enough about TPRS to know how teacher directed it is or not, but what she does is, you can tell she works with high school kids a lot because she's got everything set up to let go of control, and everything she models, she shows you how she's doing it. Then she shows you how she kind of scaffolds it to them. They have the tools, then they're doing it.
Got it.
Well, it's exhausting when you're leading it all the time. It's much more fun to be the fly on the wall going around to the groups and
Well,
seeing
they're
how
not
they.
kids. They're
That's
not kids.
where I prefer the TPRS to AIM, because TPRS, the kids will start writing their own versions of the stories pretty quick. They will, you definitely scaffold in the language, but the part that's fun is sometimes you can make it very interactive from the get-go. You can start like asking them, like kind of like Francie was doing, but when they have more vocabulary, you can ask them what this person needs. Like I found it was really effective for teaching the direct and indirect objects.
Mhm.
You know, like you say, all my examples are in my head in Spanish, but like, you know, you say to somebody like, does he have a pen? Yes. Okay. So somebody needs a pencil, but this person has a pen. Does he give it to her? Does he give it to him? And it was, I just found that lesson was probably the most powerful lesson I had for something as basic as subject pronoun, or not subject pronouns, but the indirect and direct object pronouns, and then using them in combination, because they were so focused on whether or not that was the object the person wanted. They didn't even realize they were picking up these other things in context. Like it wasn't a grammar lesson, even though it was. It was more about whether or not they thought he should take the pen from her or the pen from him. And somehow she ended up getting the pen from him. And then he ended up putting on a feather boa, and it just got extremely silly. But they got the subject or the direct and indirect object pronouns, which
So it
was
was an oral lesson for TPRS?
yes, I haven't used it for years but yeah, it was just this silly story about with using the verb tener, like avoir. Whoops, my battery's dying. But I moved into my you know, the original COVID headquarters so you could see my face when I had deadline. But yeah, I'm not explaining it very well, but it was like, it was more disjointed, I guess, because I was using a variety of stories. And
Yeah.
the idea of
So-
like, you know, how AIM continues with one story over and over and over.
Yeah.
I would kind of do a different story each week, but it would scaffold into something bigger by the end of the week. It would start off simple and then get more complex. So it was really good with my beginner Spanish and my Spanish 11s. I haven't done it with my younger classes in French.
Okay, so Franzi, also like l'approche neurolinguistique with Claude Germain, which actually is it comes from intensive French, has been around a long time. How would you compare TPRS to the l'approche neurolinguistique?
That would be a question for Michelle. I wouldn't be able
Okay.
to answer that. I don't know enough
Okay.
about it.
Okay, because same thing, I find those techniques are really effective. And also, Anne, I just wanted to say you should never think or feel bad that you use multiple resources. I think you're a professional and you know your kids, so don't feel bad about that.
No, I don't feel bad about it. I just don't want to overwhelm them with it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you
Yep.
putting more into the pot, eventually the crust is going to burst open.
Yeah. I think high school kids there's diverse needs, just like anything. Okay, well, thank you so much, Franzi.
And I hope you feel better, Susan. I was wondering if you were at home because I saw a pillow.
No, you must have missed it. I explained it to Lori. I am at an IB conference in Vancouver.
Oh, okay.
And this is my hotel room because I have my iPad, not my full laptop with me. So I'm Zooming on a on a little iPad. So
Oh, okay. Oh, very, yeah, no, I was in the shower. I got pooped on by a bird as I was getting out of my car. So I had what I would call
it's
ash
lucky.
tree guano.
That is lucky.
So I turned on the computer and popped into the shower.
Okay, Francie, thank you so much again. And I look forward to the email. Have a great day, Anne. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
And thanks, Francie.
Good night.
Oh, Francie, can I ask you one quick question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Have you gotten any of the information from UBC yet if we choose to go